You sure those are steroids you're taking?
Two lines from the top of Mem Vavam and Aleph. Amr Rabbi Yirmiyah Ba'aba, Sholchu Leimi Bei Rav L'Shmuel. They sent from the academy of Rav to Shmuel. Yalamdeinu Rabbeinu, teach us our master. Omen Amar Shtayim Kutzatztali. If, let's say, that Marshall was repairing my chess set. So he says, I promised him $200. And I say, no, I promised you only 100. So, mi nishba, who swears? Amalahem, so says the Gemara, Bezu, in this case, Yeshava Balabayis, I swear that I made up with him 100, V'yafsid umen, and Marshall is going to lose the money. Why? Because Ketzitza, the money I made up, a price, Vaday Midker de Kirei. I definitely remember. So the Gemara says, wait a second. Inni, is this so? Vatani Rabba Bar Shmuel, that Kotatz, the din is that if Marshall was working for me and I made up an amount and Marshall says it was a different amount, then if Marshall wants more money, he has to prove it. And it doesn't say anywhere that I have to swear. So how come over here I have to swear? Says the Gemara, we learned, Vatani Rabba Bar Shmuel, Katatz, that if, let's say, I say that I made up to pay Marshall $100 for the day, and Marshall says I made up to pay him $200, if he wants to get that extra 100, he has to bring proof. We learned, Vatani Rabba Bar Shmuel, Katatz HaMoitzi Mechaver Avaraya, V'iloi Maisi Raya, and if he doesn't bring a proof, Paka. So why over here, when I say that I only promised Marshall $100 to prepare my chess set, Amay Yeshava Balabayis, why do we say that I have to swear V'yafsid umen, and only then does Marshall lose out? So the Gemara says, no. You learned the Hamoitz Mechavera Oliver Raya law wrong. Amar of Nachman Litstudin Kitani. You have to read it both sides. If I say that I made up to pay Marshall 100 and Marshall says 200, so maybe Raya, either Marshall brings proof that I said 200, V'yital, Yeshava Balabayis V'yafsid, or I have to swear V'yafsid umen, and then the professional loses out, but Einochanami, I have to swear. Says the Gemara, Meisvei, Hanoising Talisei L'umen, if I give my talis to Marshall to fix the atara, some of the silver pieces on my atara are banged up, and you know, a talis should look in good shape. A talis which represents the 613 mitzvahs, because tzitzis is the gematria 600, with the 5 knots and 8 threads, it's 613. It's a crown, and therefore it should look in good shape. So I give my talis to Marshall. Marshall says, Marshall says I made up to pay him 200. And I say that I only made up to pay him 100 now. Kolzman shetalis biyad umen. As long as the talis is in Marshall's hands, then al balabayis lahavi right. Then I got to bring proof that I only promised him 100. As long as Marshall still has my talis, he has the upper hand. Nosnalai. If he gave it to me already, Bismanai, if it's within the 12 hours that I'm supposed to pay him, Nishba v'noito. He swears and he collects the 200. Avers manai, if it's more than 12 hours, then amoitz mechalei alvarayit. But here we see we're learning a whole different story. That bismanai, if it's the time when the payment is due, miya nishba v'noito. He could swear and collect. We said yeshava balabayis v'yafsid umen. We said that I swear and Marshall loses out and I only have to pay him 100. So what gives over here? Somebody is sticking up for Marshall? Can't be. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Nachman by Yitzchak. So Rav Nachman by Yitzchak says, Hamani Reb Yehudahi. Who is this going like? This is going according to Reb Yehuda. The Amar calls man sheshvua noita eitzel balabayis. Wherever the balabayis should be the one that swears. Now over here, Marshall claims 200, and I admit to 100. So I'm the Moida B'mixas. So since I'm the Moida B'mixas, I should swear. So if there's a Shvua D'Oraisa that I should swear, so instead, Socha Nishbar V'Naitel. Rabbi Yehuda holds that they shift the Shvua to the worker or the craftsman, and he swears and he collects. Now the Gemara tries to figure out which Rabbi Yehuda says this. Hey Rabbi Yehuda, which Rabbi Yehuda says this? Elaima Rabbi Yehuda de Masnisen. If it's Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah is a big machmer. Because our Mishnah says that the Rabbanan hold that there are many characters that swear and collect. Like somebody that was stolen from him, somebody that was beaten. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no, he's machmer, and he says the only time you could collect is only if the gazlan and the banger admits to something. So Rabbi Yehuda is more machmer. Ilaim Rabbi Yehuda Masnisen achmurei kamachmer. He's machmer on the one who is claiming that non Rabbi Yehuda it's only if the gazmalin admits to stealing a certain amount. It's only if he admits to hitting him a certain amount. Here, on the other hand, we're saying that Rabbi Yehuda over here is making it better for the Sachir and saying that he could swear and collect the 200. Says the Gemara, you're right. It's not Rabbi Yehuda of the Mishnah, El Rabbi Yehuda the Braisa. It's Rabbi Yehuda of the Braisa. And before we learn Rabbi Yehuda of the Braisa, I think it's about time I welcome everybody in, as we welcome in Baruch Ian, who's listening from all the way down the block, Yitzi Fuchs, Dr. Guy, Mo Kushner, Saba, Marshall Castle, Yaakov Warman, Shimon Klein, Mel Zachter, Shalom Fogel, Michael, Yitzi Muller, Eddie Chazan, Naftali Jablin, Stephen Holtzman, Reb Kaniel, Barish Gesserman, Moshe Lehman, Nachman Chapler, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Abe Arbach. Here in the shul we have with us Chaim Kramer, Michal Avram Chavin, and Menachem Umansky. The Gemara says, El Reb Yehuda de Braisa. It's Reb Yehuda of the Braisa. The Tanya, Sachir, a man that was hired, Kolzman Shaloi Over Zmanai, as long as it's in the first 12 hours, Harizen Nishba V'Noitel. He swears and he collects. V'im lav, but if not, remember we said that after the 12 hours, then the boss is believed. V'im lav, Eino Nishba V'Noitel. V'ram Rabbi Yehuda, a Masai Bizman She'amali Tainli Schari Chamishim Dinner Sheyesh Li Biyadcha. When is that? When Marshall says, give me the 50 that you owe me V'hu aimer his kabaltem em dinners of, and I say you already got a dinner of gold, which is 25. Oisha amalei shtayim katzatz, you made up 200. V'alo aimer katzatz dilach ala achas. But if I say I never hired you, I hired you and I gave you your wages, so that's the Rebbe Yehuda that says that if I admit to in the event that excuse me, it's Rebbe Yehuda who says that in the event that Marshall claims 50 and I admit to 25, I say that you already got paid 25. So when I would have a Shavuos Daraisa, Rabbi Yehuda says we shift the Shavuos to Marshall and we let him collect. Says the Gemara, Maskva Rav Shesha Breder Rav Idi, Elakotatz Rabbi Yehuda V'loi Rabbanan, the din of Kotatz, where they're arguing if it's 200 or 100, it's going according to Rabbi Yehuda and not according to Rabbanan. But I don't understand. Hashta heicha de machmir Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is machmir in the case where Marshall says that where I say that I didn't hire him or I paid him already in full. Rabbi Yehuda is machmir and says that Marshall doesn't get paid. Mikile Rabbanan. The Rabbanan are makel and say that Marshall could swear and collect. Heicha de makel Rabbi Yehuda, where he says, where I say it's 200 and he says it's 100. So over there Rabbi Yehuda is makel and says that he could swear and collect the 200. There machmer Rabbanan. Says Gemara Ve'elamai Rabbanan. You want to say that the din of Kitzitz is Rabbanan, but can't be. Ve'elahadit Tani Rabba by Shmuel Katzitz Hamaytzi Mechaver Avaraya, that if I say 200 and Marshall says 100, he has to prove it. Mani, who would it be going like? Lo Rabbi Yehuda, v'lo Rabbanan. It must be that the Rabbanan hold that over there Hamaytzi Mechaver Avaraya, not like Rabbi Yehuda. Ella Amar Rava, so Rava, to unravel all of this, Rava does as follows. First wide line on Daf Mem Vav Amud Aleph towards the bottom. Ella Amar Rava b'hokem mifligi. Rabbi Yehuda Sava b'doraisa that if I, the Balabayas, would have to make a Shavuos Doraisa. For example, Marshall says I made up 200 and I admit to 100. So I made a mixas. So normally made a mixas has to make a Shavuos Doraisa. So Ovdu le takanta, they made a takana l'sachir, that and therefore, instead of me swearing, they made a takana for Marshall that he could swear and collect the 200. However, if there isn't a Shavuos Doraisa, or b'derabanan, if it's only a derabanan, have a takanta. And the takanta le'avdinan. They don't make a takana for a takana, and therefore they don't switch it over to allow Marshall to swear. Rabbanan say, b'derabanan nami avdinan takanta l'sacher. By Rabbanan they also make a takana for the sacher. So if it's bizmanai, Marshall swears and collects his wages. However, if it's a question that I say 200 and Marshall says 100, we say that the Balabayas doesn't forget. Where I say 100 and Marshall says 200, we say that the Balabayas doesn't forget the amount, and therefore Marshall can't swear to get it. Uksitza mitka dekire. That I, the employer or the one who hires the craftsman, will remember what we made up, and there we don't allow Marshall to swear to get the extra money. Now, let's go to the case of theft. Nigzal Ketzad. Remember, this is another case where we say that although normally we say Nishboin ve'ein noitlin, we swear and we don't pay, here we allow the victim to swear and collect. So what's the case? Nigzal Ketzad. They testify that Marshall came into my house to grab something. Says the Gemara. So we say that I could swear what it was and collect. Says the Gemara, but maybe he didn't take anything. And even if people heard, I'm going to go into Rabbi Weiss's house and take something, a lot of times people don't do what they say. If Marshall takes an axe in his hand, I'm going to cut down Rabbi Weiss's palm tree. And people find my palm tree cut down, but nobody saw Marshall did it. I can't make Marshall pay for it. Everybody heard he said, I'm going to cut down Rabbi Weiss's palm tree. Unless somebody saw it, we don't say automatically because he said it, he cut it down. People, have a bark, but their bark is worse than their bite. So unless we saw Marshall cut it down, just because he said, I'm going to get Rabbi Weiss, I'm going to cut down his palm tree, we can't assume that he cut it down. So even though he said, I'm going to go into Rabbi Weiss and take something out of it, so just because he came into my house, why should I be able to swear and claim he took something? No, it means that people saw him come out of my house with something. So then the Gemara says, so then let them testify what he took. Why do I have to swear that he took my Staunton chest set with $499? Says the Gemara, Amar Rabba Babachana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, B'toinu kelim, V'toinoi kelim anitolin tachas k'nofav. He was carrying something under his jacket. So people saw him carrying something under his jacket. Marshall says it was, it was Atlas with $19.99 in Woolworth. Right? I say it was my Staunton chest set worth $499. Actually, I said it was my silver menorah worth $4,000. Right? So I could swear and collect. So now the Gemara starts giving us a lot of conditions. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Ru'u sheitmin kelev tachas knafa v'yatza. If we see Marshall hide something under his jacket and goes out of my house, but Marshall says, L'kuchen ein biyadi. Yeah, I took something from Rabbi Weiss, but I bought it. What a character. Always has a story. Einoi neman. He's not believed. Right? He's not believed. Even with a shvuah, he's not believed. That's only if I'm not a peddler. But if I sell things from my house, then he's believed. And even if I don't usually sell things, that's only something that you don't usually carry under your jacket. So the fact that he's carrying it under his jacket, that looks suspicious. But if it's things that you do put under your jacket, let's say he's buying ladies' clothing, Right? So it's not something that he parades around in the street in it, so he puts it under his jacket. So then he's believed. Now that's even though I don't usually sell stuff, but maybe I needed the money and I did sell it. And even she'ein darken lahat min nami, and even if it's not the derech to hide, loy amrin ela inish deloy tzniya. That's only if he's a person that's not, very modest. He'll walk through the street carrying a bottle of bourbon and a package of Romanian francs and a hockey stick. Aval inish the
ladies' clothes.
Aval inish the tzniya. But if he's a more modest person who doesn't like to have things carrying out in the open, then hainu urche, it's normal. And therefore, even though normally I don't sell things, maybe I needed the money, and he would be believed to say he bought it. All of this is where I claim that he borrowed it, and therefore I want it back, and he claims he bought it. Aval bignuvim, but if I claim that he stole it, and he says he bought it, that's not believable. Lav kol kamine, it's not my right. Lachzuke inish beganve. Lachzuke inish beganve loy malzakin. We don't assume that he stole it. V'loy amrin ela b'dvar ma'asuyin lahashel lahasker. But that's only if it's something that's normally given as a loan or rented. Aval dvarm she'ein asuyin lahashel lahasker. If it's something that is not usually loaned or rented, and remember, we don't believe that he stole it, then we believe him that he bought it. Neman. The Shalach Rav Huna bar Avin, dvar ma'asuyin lahashel lahasker, things that are normally borrowed or rented, v'amar l'kuchen ein biyadi, and he claims that he bought it, he's not believed. Ein enema. And the Gemara says, this is an incident that's quoted in different places in Shas. What happened is the Yisayim had in their house a sefer of Agadita and scissors used on cloaks. And the last known owner claimed that it was borrowed. And since a sefer of Agadita and scissors are something that's normally loaned out, so Rava paskin that they have to give it back. The Rava apik zuga de sarbala, a scissors for cloaks, v'safra da agadita, and a sefer of agadita miyasme, saying that the father probably borrowed it, b'dvar ma'asiyan la'ashel l'lasker, and something that's normally borrowed or rented. Amar Rava, when Marshall comes into the house and he takes something which is not normally loaned, and he claims he didn't take it, afilu shomer nishba, even the guard in the house could swear what it is, and afilu ishta shel shomer nishbas, even the wife of the guard could swear. Bayra Papa, if Marshall came into Mel's house, what about Sechira Ulakita Mai? What can Mel's hired hand or somebody that works in his field, can he be believed to swear what Marshall took? Right? The hired hand wants to say that Marshall took a picture off the wall worth $50,000. Says the Gemara Teku, that we don't know. We have to wait.
Why is it not Negei Be'edas? Do all these guys have Negias?
They don't have Negias, it's not theirs.
His wife?
It's the wife of the Shomer, not Marshall's wife. Amalei Rav Yemer Rav Ashi. Tanu Bekasa de Kaspa Mai. What if he claims that Marshall came in and took a silver case? So now it depends, does Mel have a silver case? Chazina, if he's a wealthy person, or inish the mehemenu, or he's a trusted person, demifkede inshigabe, that even if he can't afford a silver case, but other people would trust him to deposit their silver case by him, then mishtaver shakel. Then it's believable, it's credible, and he could swear and collect. V'ilai, but if he's neither, he doesn't have the money for a silver case, and he doesn't have the credibility that people would deposit by him a silver case, then he wouldn't be believed to swear and collect. Now, and I want to point out that Yitzi Muller has pointed out to us that we are at Daf 1990, closing in on 2000. 10 more Daf to 2000. Yeah, then when you get to 2000, you know what you're able to say, Shalom. And somebody asks you, do you know it? You could say, I know the other 1,000. Right? That's what you do. Do you know this last 1,000? I know the other 1,000. The Nechbal Ketzad. What happens if the person is wounded? Let's pick somebody. Marshall. Right? So, Eddie punched him up. So, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mashmol lo yishanu b'makom sheyochel lechabel ba'atzmai. The only time that he has to swear is where it's something that Marshall could have done by himself. In other words, if he has a bruise on his head, he could have banged his head in the wall. So he has to swear that Eddie did it. But if it's in a place that he could have done it to himself, then then he could collect without a shvur. Says maybe he banged himself in the wall. Says the Gemara, Tani Reb Chia she'olso lo neshicha begabai. He has a bite on his back. Now Marshall might have bit his front, but he can't bite his back. So he has a bite on his back, or tzile yadav, in between his elbows, in a place that you can't bite. No, the other side, Marshall. Can't do it. Says the Gemara, but v'dilma acher avidlei, maybe somebody else did it. Says the Gemara, the leka acher, nobody went into the house except for Eddie. So if it's in a place where Marshall couldn't have done it to himself, so then he could collect even without swearing. Finally, we said that if, let's say, I say, Marshall, you owe me $1,000, and he admits to 500. So normally he would swear and not have to pay the other 500. But if Marshall is suspected about Shavuos, so then we take the Shavuot away from Marshall, and I swear and I collect. So we said, cases where Marshall would be suspect is if he was a pigeon racer, if he was marketed with shvius, if he gave loans with ribis, or he swore falsely on any type of shvua. So it says if he swore falsely with shvua se'edus, shvua about testimony, shvua sepikadon about a deposit, or even shvua shav, even if he swore a vain oath. Let's see it inside. Maya filu shvua shav. What do you mean, even a vain oath? I mean, if he swore that the sun is the moon, so he's a liar. What's the even? Says loy mi boy cover, loy mi boy hanach shvua se'edus shvua sepikadon, that he would swear even where there's a financial matter. There spoke fears mammon. There is a denial about money. But here where he says the sun is the moon, well, a pillar of gold is a pillar of stone. The kfiris dvar ba'almo, there he swore about just trivialities. But maybe he won't swear falsely about somebody's money. Still loy me'amen. Still, he's not believed. So then ask the Gemara, why doesn't it say also Shavuos Bitui, an oath of utterance? What's an oath of utterance? If he says he will eat and he doesn't eat, or he says he won't eat and he does eat. So why doesn't it say that also? V'lisnei nami Shavuos Bitui. So Gemara says a really interesting teretz. The Gemara says there, when he uttered the oath, maybe he meant to tell the truth. He swore that he won't eat. At the time that he swore, he meant to tell the truth. What could he do? He saw Romanian franc, and he succumbed. He says he won't drink, and he saw bourbon. But that's not the same, because at the time he made the shvua, he meant to tell the truth. So there, maybe we would trust him to swear. And that's what the Gemara says. V'lisnei nami shvuas bita, kikatani shvua, dechi kamishtava, b'shikra kamishtava. That at the time that he swore falsely. He says he didn't take the deposit. He did. He said he doesn't know testimony. He does. Aval shvuas bita, de'ika l'meimed, de'bekushta kamishtava. At the time he swore he won't eat, Titaka meant that he's not going to eat. So that, like Ketani, says, well, what about the other type of shvuas bitui, where he swore that he didn't eat, or he swore that he did eat? There it's a lie right away. Teinach oichel v'loy oichel, where he said I will eat or I won't eat, but achalti v'loy achalti, where he said I ate and he really didn't, or I didn't eat and he really did. There it was a lie as soon as he said it. Ma'ikel amendment says, well, you're right. If he did that, he wouldn't be trusted. Tana shvuas shav. It says a vain oath, which is a lie as soon as he said it, that the sun is a moon. It's a lie as soon as he said it. And v'kol dedamile, and anything similar. So swearing that I ate and he didn't eat, or swearing that he didn't eat and he ate, which is a lie right away, taka, then he would be stripped of his right to make the shvuah. Instead, I would swear and I would collect. I would go and get that bite treated because I think Eddie has rabies.
Well, at least it's not a hickey. Thanks, Eddie.
Again, Rabbi Isai, I want to remind you that we are looking for a sponsor for this week's Chumash Shir. Again, we do not have a sponsor. So somebody out there in TorahAnytime.com land, in Kol HaLashon land, in YouTube land, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. We also